And hello there, people of the world. Welcome to the coolest corner of YouTube, Sir Koolzalot. You're cool, I'm cool. Together we're basically just too cool to measure. So let's jump on in with today's video. So as you know, I have been testing the X8 Medicine Insulin Travel Cooler. I've been very impressed with its capabilities, and so what better way to keep putting it through its paces than taking it on a live California Bay Area trail walk. In addition, this also prompted me to take a little bit of time to think about the setup gear for this trail walk, in terms of how to carry or transport this cooler, and then also to put a little bit more energy and thought into the battery consumption aspect of this cooler. How does it perform with the different power levels that it has? Hopefully you've already seen my earlier videos on the X8 Medicine Cooler, so I won't take too much time to go into great detail about how it works and all of its features, because you can just simply go to the other X8 video that I posted about that. I will just sort of jump on in and show you what I have with this latest data package, and hopefully you find it interesting. So this is just a quick peek, preview of some of the photography and videos that you will see today. So beautiful California Bay trails. As you know, I do have my usual disclaimers, so please take a moment to check them out. The quick version is I am on a personal quest to find the best medicine travel coolers that are out there, and all my data is my own and all of my views are my own, based on the testing that I have conducted with the products that I purchased independently. Let's keep on going. So this is just to give you a quick refresher on what the product looks like. So as I said, this is a very compact insulin travel cooler that has sort of a built-in battery and a number of different power levels depending on the temperature conditions that you're going to be adventuring or traveling in. There's an energy saving mode, a balanced power mode, and then this powerful mode. So check out my other video to look at those details. And then of course I was tinkering a little bit with some animation technologies, trying to improve my presentation skills a little bit more. So I was having a lot of fun here with some animation videos where you can put an ice effect over some items that are in your photo. So those are animations, those are not actually real photos, in case you're wondering. I'm sure you knew that already, because there's some very intelligent people watching this channel. Let's keep on going. So this is just to give you an idea of the trail for today. So this was a Bay Area trail that was sort of located south of San Francisco, actually south of the San Francisco International Airport. So there's an area called San Mateo and a little township within it called Foster City. And Foster City has this really cool waterfront bay trail that you can either walk or cycle along, depending on what, or even run actually if you want, and it can go on for miles and miles and miles. I did a 6-mile walk for this video, and it took me around about 2 hours to complete this. You can walk in one direction or the other, or a little bit of, you can go off trail and go onto the beachfront. You will get the idea when you see some of the footage that I took while I did this trail. So let's keep on going. So now here you can start to see a little bit about the trail. So you can kind of see the footage here where there was some nice driftwood that came onto the shore of the bee trail. There is a little bit of a tide, even though it's inland from the ocean. And then along the trail as well, there's some cool benches and other things where you can kind of stop. Now what you'll also notice here is the little carrier bag that I was using, so I'm going to show you more about that in a minute. I did put a little bit of energy into finding a bag that sort of fits and work. I tried a few different products out and landed with this one for this sort of trial run, so hopefully you will find this interesting and it will maybe give you some interesting ideas about how you might approach your adventure if you want to use the X8 insulin cooler. So let's keep on going. Alright, so here's kind of a video so you can get a feel for the Bayfront Trail, and of course here is our X8 cooler, the star of the show. For the trail I used the balanced mode with a temperature setting of 2 centigrade or 36 Fahrenheit, so I really dialed the temperature setting all the way down to kind of put it through its paces. Here's another video of the trail. Now you can kind of see one of the bridges, the Bay Area bridges, not the Golden Gate bridges, that's much further up, but you can kind of see one of the main bridges here. And then of course I was also really enjoying the view, and you can also start to now see a little bit more of that carrier bag that might have piqued your attention. So let's keep on going and let me show you more about that. So let's talk about the trail equipment and setup that I was using. So a couple of different sort of accessories to be aware of. Of course, as you know, my favorite battery right now is the Inu. I promise you I'm not getting any sponsorship from Inu. Maybe I should request that at this point, but no. I want to be independent. The bag that you saw there is called the Labial Waist Pack, and this is traditionally a sort of a water bottle holder that can be used for sort of trail walkers or cyclers. And it took quite a bit of trial and error with a couple of different products that I ordered to find one that actually had just about the right geometry to hold the cooler, kind of almost perfectly in place, so that I felt that it had kind of a very sturdy kind of feel to it. If I was on a trail and I was maybe going up a steep spot or something, it wouldn't sort of accidentally fall out. So I wanted something that was pretty nice and secure. So I'll show you more about that in a minute. Also, the other thing that I was experimenting with, and I think this would be of interest to you, is, so as you know, the X8, the USB port is such that if you have a straight cable, the cable will just stick out, and then if you have a right-angled cable, it will point either to the left or the right, depending on which orientation you have. Actually, the ideal setup, I think, for most carrier systems would be to have the USB port pointing downwards, which requires a more unique kind of angled plug. Or actually, you can get yourself a little adapter that in fact has like a 540 degree rotation, so it can kind of spin into the different angles that you want. And so that's, I don't know if you've seen those, but they're kind of cool. And then also, actually, if you're interested, you can get a magnetized version of those products, where basically you'll have a magnet breakaway, which could be helpful if you're on a plane or something and you're worried that someone might trip over your cable and you don't want it to damage the port. Now for the trail walk, I used the adapter that didn't have the magnet, because I wanted to make sure that the cable was always sturdily connected to the cooler. I didn't want to accidentally sort of knock the wire or something like that, because I was on a trail and I was kind of more animated. So anyway, just sort of different cable setups that you might want to think about. But anyway, here's sort of the quick view of the products that I was using in my setup. So now let me show you the setup. So this is kind of just looking on from the top view. You can kind of see the bag. What's nice about the bag is it actually has a pocket for the Inu battery. I will explain more about the battery aspects of this setup in a few slides when I talk about the battery. So now here you can kind of see I'm using those little magnetic adapters. So I'm actually using two adapters, and sorry, they're not the magnetic ones, they're the fixed ones. So I'm using two fixed adapters, one to orientate the angle of the cable out of the pouch, and then the other one to orientate the outlet of the cooler. So here, now you can kind of see what I'm talking about there, with this idea of being able to orientate the cable in the desired direction. And so if you have a rigid 90-degree port, you will get left with only being able to orientate it in the left or right direction. It won't point downwards, so you need a more specialized adapter to be able to take a USB port that's in the vertical position and then angle that cable downwards. So here's a trick to do that. So now you can kind of see how this cooler fits very nicely in this bag. And then what I also like about it is it has quite a lot of vent openings, so you can very easily kind of run a cable from the pocket of the bag to the cooler. Now, as you know, this cooler does come with a built-in battery as well. So the built-in battery is 10,000 milliamp hours. However, depending on what your trail plan is and how many hours you're planning to go into the field, that may or may not be sufficient, depending on what the ambient temperatures are, and other things like that. So in the case of this cooler, you may need to plan to have an additional external battery power with you, or perhaps you just use, or you have multiple of the provided batteries that come with the X8 cooler. You get 3 batteries, but they're 10,000 milliamp each. So I'll just let this video roll a little bit more so you can kind of get a feel for how that bag works. You got the usual straps, little connectors that you can put around your waist. This is just me quickly showing you that adapter that has the magnetic piece, so you can kind of see how it sort of nicely breaks away there. So if that's potentially a solution, depending on what you have planned. But yeah, so nothing too complicated here, just giving you kind of an idea of the setup or potential setups that you might want. One thing to maybe think about with this X8 cooler, so because the primary battery is let's call it an internal battery, so it's very snug against the cooling flask, and if you are to use a bag, you're going to have to essentially put the cooling flask and the battery inside the bag. Be very careful about batteries inside let's say carrier bags that are highly insulated, because the battery itself will probably get a little bit warmer. It will maybe generate a little bit of heat, and so you want to be careful to not create a situation where you've packed this cooler in a very insulated carrier system that's so well insulated that actually the heat that's produced by the battery as it's cooling the unit can't escape anywhere. So actually I was thinking a little bit about this, and I was looking at the cooling flask and the battery under thermal imaging, and you can definitely see the battery produces produces heat, not excessive heat, but it does produce an ambient heat. And so from a tactical point of view, you may want to select a carrier system that's either meshed or has open holes or something like that, which is kind of, in the case of this one, so there's kind of a nice hole to the side there, which means that the battery can stay cool and aerate. So yeah. All right. So let's keep on going. So how about a little fashion show? I guess I had to at least take one picture to show you what the carrier bag looks like when it's wrapped around my waist. So here's, interestingly enough, a picture of yours truly, myself. One interesting thing you should know. So there was a time a few years ago when I actually weighed nearly 355 pounds. So I have, as you can see, lost a lot of weight, and so actually I finally have a little bit of courage to be able to even take a picture of myself and show this on a YouTube channel. So don't underestimate just how much of a brave step this is to actually start to maybe show a little bit more about who I am. There is a real person behind the video. So anyway, there I am, and there you can kind of see a peek at what the carrier bag and setup looks like. So I had shorts and t-shirts on for this trail, and just an easy Patagonia jacket, so nothing too complicated. And the carrier bag you can hold to your side, or you can kind of spin it around a little bit and have it sit just behind the side of your back, so when you're walking it doesn't get in the way of your arm swings. And so yeah, I thought this was a pretty versatile and a cool setup for a first try. So let's keep on going. Alright, and then if you're wondering about the versatility of this carrier pouch, I gave it a quick try with some of the other coolers that I have. So Dissonicare, that product is a little bit too wide, so it doesn't fit. Foral Family Voyager, also a little bit too wide, cannot fit into the bottle holder. But the RX Coolers Mini, aka the Mini Pro, actually does fit very, very comfortably. It is a little bit taller than the X8, but it does fit very nicely in the pouch. So if you are looking for a sort of a trail bag, this may be the one for you, or at least some similar design. Let's keep on rolling. Alright, so I also did a little bit more testing of the cooler's battery capabilities. So as you know, this cooler has 3 settings: an energy savings, a balance mode, and a powerful mode. So I ran the cooler in, so this is my test cooler, in each of the different power modes to see how long that 10,000 milliamp hour battery would last. So the ambient temperature that I had the cooler at was about 75 Fahrenheit, so that can be a little bit important. It will burn a little bit more energy than if it was cooler. So probably a good sort of midpoint mark for getting a ballpark. And the quick version is, in the energy savings mode, the battery lasted around about 12 hours. In the balance mode, the battery lasted around about 8 hours. So this is the built-in battery, so the X8 custom battery. And then in the powerful mode, the battery lasted about 6.5 hours. So that sort of gives you an idea of the burn rate. So now getting back to why I mentioned that it could be important to, when you're going on a day trail or an expedition, or something that's going to be many hours, you will want to really think about the amount of battery capacity that you have for that trail. So I also took the opportunity to see how the Inu would do. I had previously tested the energy savings mode with the Inu Classic. So this is a 20,000 milliamp battery, and it ran for an impressive 27 hours. So you get quite a boost there in terms of how long how much cooling time you will get on battery. And then I also tested it in the powerful mode. So in the powerful mode, the Inu battery was able to run the unit for 12 hours. So certainly a bit of an improvement there over the internal X8 battery. But this sort of makes sense because the X8 battery has a 10,000 milliamp hour capacity, and the Inu has a 20,000 milliamp hour capacity. So almost, basically, it almost lasts twice as long, if not more. So now think about if you do go on a trail and you have a fully charged internal battery with 10,000 milliamps, and on top of that, you're carrying a larger external battery that you can plug in. Then you can, the cumulative budget that you have for charging will essentially be the addition of the two. So you can end up with quite an impressive setup for going on an adventure, going on a trail for quite a long time. You basically get an entire day of battery charging from one Inu. If you can if the temperature is kind of reasonable. Then of course, if you do have to go to the balanced or the powerful mode, you'll just have to be careful there that you don't run out of juice while you're on your trail. So that's the quick version of this. I hope you found that interesting. Let's keep on going. So then the grand finale, just a little bit of temperature data. So of course I did log the temperature during the trail walk. So this wasn't a long one. I went on the trail for a few hours. I stopped to take some videos, relax, and all of that. I did let the unit run a little bit afterwards, but this was just to focus on the trail data. And then during the trail, I did experiment a little bit with the energy saving mode just to see how that would behave. And nothing unexpected there. When you go into energy saving mode, the cooler core temperature will increase just a little bit because it's in energy saving mode essentially. So nothing unusual, nothing abnormal. It was behaving very similarly to the previous data set that I had, where in the balance mode, as long as the temperature's below that sort of 80 degrees Fahrenheit mark, you're going to get a very well performing unit. So I think that's kind of most of the story that I have today. As you all know, I did manage to get my store up and running. So you can, if any of the coolers that you see catch your attention, and you want to grab a cooler that's been thoroughly QC tested to make sure that it works, it goes down to the right temperature, you're very welcome to take dibs on the inventory that I have. My inventory prices are the import prices, so there's no price gouging. So this is really a community store service for medicine patients. You can check out all the stuff that I have on the eBay store. Just note that the marked prices on the eBay store are highly inflated, and that's just deliberately done so that random people don't just sort of buy that inventory, because it is special, it's been thoroughly tested, and I want this for the patient community. But don't pay those prices, because I have import prices that are way better and not price gouging. So that's a wrap for me, and I wish you a wonderful day, hope you enjoyed this video.